This Monday, Americans throughout the country will commemorate Martin Luther King Day. And for many of us, MLK was one of our heroes. He is for me. For many obvious reasons of the incredible work he did for the civil rights movement, his emphasis on nonviolent protest. But what a lot of us may forget is that MLK was also steeped in the Jewish tradition. He took the Old Testament and used many of the motifs and the themes, especially that of the Exodus, of Moses taking our people out of Egypt, was for him the motif, the central theme behind the civil rights movement, that one day they too, his people, would be led to the promised land. MLK had a lot to say, and a lot of good things to say for all Americans. One of my favorite quotes that MLK once said was that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Can we as Americans today remember his words? And can we remember the words that he said about Zionism? Many of us may not know, but MLK was a big supporter of the State of Israel. He once wrote a letter criticizing an anti-Zionist friend. He wrote, "You declare, my friend, that you do not hate the Jews. You're merely an anti-Zionist. You're merely against Israel. But I say, let the truth ring from high mountaintops. Let it echo through the valleys of God's green earth. When people criticize Zionism, they mean Jews. This is God's own truth." Why is this? You know that Zionism is nothing less than the dream and ideal of the Jewish people returning to live in their land. How easy it should be for anyone who holds dear the inalienable right of all mankind to understand and support the right of the Jewish people to live in their ancient land of Israel. All men of goodwill exult in the fulfillment of God's promise that his people shall return in joy to rebuild their plundered land. That is Zionism, nothing more and nothing less. Let us never forget that MLK was a Zionist. Finally, let us remember one great story about an incredible rabbi, Abraham Joshua Heschel, who became very good friends with MLK and was a big supporter of his in the civil rights movement. In 1965, MLK invited Heschel on a Friday afternoon to come to Selma, Alabama, that Sunday morning to participate in the famous Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery. It would be difficult for Heschel to make that trip. As a religious Jew, kosher food would be hard to find. Many Jews did not want him to go. What would the civil rights movement have to do with Jews, they argued. Plus, it could be very dangerous. But Heschel went. He did the right thing. He stood right next to MLK as they made that most famous of all marches. And when he returned from Selma, Heschel said, "For many of us, that march to Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling. And yet our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. I felt my legs were praying." Like Heschel, can we at times walk out of our comfort zones, do what is right, and to stand with African Americans in their march for civil rights, for full equality, then and now and in the future. Shabbat Shalom.